All right. So now we are going to look at, start looking at the financial statements. So you might hear people refer to things such as the financials or the finance documents or things of that nature. And what we're talking about is we're talking about the financial statements. And there's actually 4 financial statements: the income statement, the retained earnings statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. Now, we will not be looking at the statement of cash flows until chapter 12, okay? So you can just kind of set that aside. You don't need to read that part in chapter 1. You do not have any homework around that, and you will not have anything on the exam for chapter 1. Now, you want to make a note of this. You will have on your exam and on your homework an income statement, a retained earnings statement, and a balance sheet. And they do have to be done in that specific order. Okay, they have to be done in that order. You have to do the income statement first, retained earnings statement second, and the balance sheet third, because then one number from the income statement rolls over to the retained earnings statement, and then one number from the retained earnings statement rolls over to the balance sheet. So they have to be done in that order. Okay. The other thing to know is that when you do one, you do them all normally. And normally companies should be doing these every single month. So they will do a monthly set of them, and then at the end of the year, they will do their year-end financial statements. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to go through and we are going to look at each statement one by one. We're going to kind of run through what the accounts are, which accounts go on which statements. The balance sheet has a very specific order that accounts have to go to, and I'm going to refer you to a model in the book for those. And then we are going to actually do some financial statements together. All right. Oh, another mention. On your exam, you will be doing the financial statements from chapter 1. In chapter 2, we're going to learn how to do what's called a classified balance sheet, but on the exam, you will be doing the balance sheet from chapter 1. So you'll want to make a note of that as well. All right. So let's talk about the income statement. This is in your book. Again, you can follow along in your book. The page numbers, I'm not sure what they are at the moment, but you can follow along in your book. They may be close to this, but I think the dates are different in your book, but the numbers are probably the same, should be the same. Okay, so if you look at this as the income statement, first thing I want to point out to you is that you see I have some numbers circled in red there and I have an arrow. Those numbers are actually indented. So you'll see that they're indented where I put the little red check marks there, if you can see those, or little red lines, if you can see those. So the expenses are actually indented. All right, so the income statements start, all the statements have the name of the company at the top, they have the title of the statement, and then they have the date. And the date is can be different depending on what the financial statement is. So we have, this is for Sierra Corporation, this is the income statement, and this is for the month ended October 31st, 2022. Now, it could be for the month ended or it could be for the year ended. It's going to depend on what your problem says. So the financial statement always starts with revenues, and the revenues have a title. Okay, the sections are titled. So you're going to put a title over the revenue section, and it's going to be called revenue. And right now we are only dealing with service revenue. Okay, so revenues, that's the title, revenue. And then you have the word service revenue, and it's slightly indented, and you won't have to worry about that so much because you're gonna have the boxes on Wiley. If you were doing it on paper like we used to do, then you'd have to be a lot more diligent about that. And then the service revenue total gets pushed all the way over to the right. Okay. Then you're gonna list your expenses. Now, you have the title expenses for that section. And then you're going to list your expenses. Now, your expenses do not have to be in a specific order. However, I'm going to tell you to follow the model in the book. And the reason why I'm going to tell you to follow the model in the book is because if you do not do them correctly, let's say that you put your expenses in and you have something wrong, and now you're trying to figure out what you got wrong. In order for you to be able to figure out what you got wrong, you're going to have to go to the book and look at some models in the book. And if you are not following the format that they offer you in the book, as far as the order of the expenses, it's going to be really hard for you to double check your work because you're going to be bouncing all over the place. So I strongly suggest that you follow the example in the book. And right now, the example that we're looking at is on page 1-14. So you can either use the Sierra Corporation on the top of 114, or you can use CSU Corporation on the top of 115. Now you'll notice that they're not exactly the same. So I would say follow the Sierra one. Okay, you want to be as close as you can to a sample. So we have salaries and wages expense. Okay, $5,200. We have rent expense, $900. We have supplies expense, $1,500. We have depreciation expense, $40. We have interest expense, $50. We have insurance expense, $50. Now, remember, those would all be indented, right, over to here. And then you would total all those up, and then you would have a title saying total expenses for $77,440, okay? Then what you do is you subtract what went out, total expenses, from what came in, and what came in is the revenue. So we've got 10,600 minus 7,740. That gives us a net income of 2,860. And it's a net income because we had more come in than we had go out. Okay, more came in than went out. And the thing about that too is that we have more in than out, and that's what we're going to see in all of our problems in this class. You are not going to have a net loss in this class at any point, okay? So if you get a net loss when you're doing your work, you probably did something wrong. You need to go back and refigure it,